Hello, elder drunken homies. It's your boy, aka Austin, coming at you with an awesome new deck tech. It is Rowan Scion of War. And it is a Rakdos spell-slinging Doomsday deck. Now, before we get into it, I want to thank you all for tuning in, and we got to do that shameless plug, so check the links down below. We have links to our link tree, which has everything on it. We got Twitter, we got Discord, where we build and brew decks and talk about all kinds of things, memes and shenanigans. We have our Instagram, where we post awesome pictures of Josh's foil peels, and also sometimes talk about decks and things going on in the Magic community. We got our link for Card Trader Zero, where you can order cards from around the world and they'll stockpile them for you. Check it out, and it helps us out. Oh yeah, and check out the Patreon, where you can support us for literally just $1 a month, bare minimum. Like, whatever, man. We're just trying to put out some cool stuff. And also, like, it's good to be back. So, now that the plugs are out of the way, let's get to the deck. Rowan Heartless Scion is a Rakdos Spellslinger life lost deck that wants to get Rowan to the board and then use our life total to cheapen spells. We can untap Rowan with active treason style cards, preferably with 1 pip in the cost to maximize cost reduction, which honestly is a rule for building this deck in general for efficiency's sake. I break it for some of my bigger spells which have triple pips, but usually those are the ones that are worth casting right after using her, or right before in some cases. We have big payoffs for spells and abilities like that. We have Exsanguinate and Comet Storm as 2 pretty solid examples. Then if you want like Torment of Hailfire, Crackle with Power, literally any big X spell can be your big finisher for what this deck is doing. Now, this deck wants to be explosive, trying to do a lot in 1 or maybe 2 turns. It's also tricky because you have to manage your life total much more carefully, since Rowan can only be activated at sorcery speed. So you only have the cost reduction on your turn. A lot of our instants are geared towards protecting our own spells and permanents. And when we talk about protecting our spells and permanents, we have to note that Rowan is a 3 mana 4/2. She's got Menace and a tap ability. What we want is to give her haste, hexproof, indestructible, protect her at all costs, because if she's gone, we can't do our shenanigans. So keep that in mind as we go through the rest of this deck. There are a lot of ways to get her back, and there are ways to function and win without her. She's just the easiest way to do it, because we can threaten a win on turn 3 with this deck. Because it isn't good enough to be CEDH, but is definitely high power in the way that I designed this, because it has a lot of rituals, such as Dark Ritual, Cabal Ritual, Mana Geyser, like those things that give you a lot of red or a lot of black, because we really only need colored mana. So mana rocks are kind of inconsequential to us. But anyway, let's get on with the rest of the deck. I want to start with some of the flashier cards. One of the first cards that I thought of when brewing this deck was Heartless Hidetsugu. This creature deals half of everyone's life total in damage to them. So if you can drop him quick and hit everyone before they lose any life, then you're hitting the board for 80 damage. If you give him lifelink, you take 20 but gain 60. Well, take 20, gain 80, because you gain the life that he deals in damage to you as well. But you still technically lose the life. And that's the fun part about that card. I initially had designed the deck around specifically using Heartless Hidetsugu, and so he's the honorary secret commander of the deck. He's the only real other legendary creature, I guess, behind Villas, who I would give that honorarium to. Next up, let's talk converting life total to mana. That is another insane feature of this deck, is we want to cheat out spells by using our life total, and Rowan cheapens that effect already, but we might as well compound it. If we can pay life to increase Rowan's ability and also cast spells, we are doing everything right. So we have Crick, Son of Yawgmoth, Treasonous Ogre, Fire Covenant, Hatred, Bolas's Citadel. Like, talk about insane card value. We also have Defiler of Flesh and Defiler of Instinct. For our permanent spells, we have a really good pool of cards to choose from here. Really want to mention Treasonous Ogre, because getting red mana for life is hard. So the reverse lightning bolt is the only way to do it. But it allows us to essentially cast like any wheel we want for free, which is insane. And then Fire Covenant is removal for the board, and then lets us cast big things with Rowan. So basically pay 3 mana to pay 10 life to reduce all of your spells by 10 for the rest of the turn. Get rid of all the things that are annoying you, and then move on with your game plan of storming off. Now, a couple of other fun cards that play with our life total. We have Reanimate, which allows us to get Rowan back, or to resurrect some of our big ticket items, such as Villas, Broker in Blood, or Zealous Conscripts, Crick, Doom Whisperer. We have a ton. I also want to mention Wheel of Misfortune and Path of the Pyromancer. These are my favorite wheels. These are the 2 wheels that I wanted to really highlight in this deck, because Wheel of Misfortune deals damage to us, so we can do it before or after we have a Rowan trigger to either pinpoint exactly how much we want to reduce everything by, or we can use it to dig deeper after we've already used her ability. Then Path of the Pyromancer has an effect that doesn't really matter, like that second line of text, but that first line of text says discard your hand, draw that many cards +1, and then you get that much red mana. All I needed to see. It's what Neheb does when he hits people, and I love that ability. It's not really... Neheb isn't good in this deck, but Path of the Pyromancer is insane, because we need red mana to keep digging. We need black mana in order to win the game. In most cases, we can do it either way, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But I have a few combos that I want to mention outside of just how this deck is built to last. Since it's a storm deck, we can storm off with creatures or spells. We run Cloudstone Curio along with Dockside Extortionist, Priest of Urabrask, and Priest of Gix. Any creatures that refund mana or untap lands or anything like that really works with Cloudstone Curio, but it's really just a backup plan in case Rowan doesn't work out. We have Burgi, God of Storytelling, and Carnival of Souls to make sure that we produce mana so we can actually Cloudstone with other things if we have Rowan. So our bigger creatures can come down for 1 or 2 mana, and then we can get black and red mana from Carnival of Souls or Burgi. And watch out for Carnival of Souls. It may kill you. Beware. I also want to touch on that act of treason thing I said earlier. So most of them don't say opponent's creature. Most of them, in fact, just say target creature. Untap that creature, it gains haste. You could very feasibly just use the spell to give her haste if you have enough mana and you've ramped really well in the early game, or you just saved up a lot of rituals or something like that. But the best way to do this is to say Fire Covenant the board for 10. Then you tap Rowan. You play Zealous Conscripts. You untap Rowan. You tap Rowan again. Now everything costs 20 less. Then you play Coercive Recruiter. Everything costs 30 less, and so on and so forth. It's actually like one of the easiest ways to build both storm count and cost reduction for a big X spell at the end of the day. Our other combo, as I've mentioned a few pieces of it already, is Bolas's Citadel, Sensei's Divining Top, and Aetherflex Reservoir. Bolas's Citadel, Sensei's Divining Top, and Aetherflex Reservoir is a very classic combo. All 3 cards are insane in this deck on their own. Bolas's Citadel lets us dig deeper, it lets us pay life, it lets us kill people. Like it's great. It's great. Sensei's Divining Top allows us to look more at the top of our library, draw cards if necessary, and Aetherflex Reservoir allows us to actually do something with our storm. And also, it allows us to pay 50 life, which, you know, if we're there, we're there. If we're there, we're there. If we can get to like 51 life off of like an Exsanguinate, then we can do it. We can just blast somebody and then, you know, tap Rowan again, I guess. The other card I want to talk about is Underworld Breach, because that combos with Dockside and Wheel as well. So, you know, we have a lot of backup options. There's a couple of other ones you could throw in here that are classic red-black bangers, but we don't need to talk about that. I actually want to get on to my top 5 favorite picks in this deck. And we're going to start this off real nice with Hatred. Instant speed, pay X life, target creature gets +X/+O until end of turn. Yeah, so you can either play it right before you attack someone on main phase 1. You could use it to sneak in and end somebody on another person's turn when they're expecting to only take like 2. Like, that's a really risky play, and you probably want to do that if like there's only 3 players left and the other person wasn't thinking they were going to lose their ally. But you know, there are ways to play Hatred, but the real reason I have it is because it lets you dumpster a lot of life for a relatively cheap amount of mana. Another card you could use in that place would be Adnaz. It's a great card in place of Hatred, but Hatred ends players, and that's why I picked it, and that's me keeping this deck in casual and not CEDH territory, because I don't think Rowan can hang in CEDH. She's too slow, too fragile. She's really good support, but yeah, we're keeping it relatively low-key, because, I mean, the next card I want to talk about is Doomsday, which is just, you know, half your life to exile your library and then build your deck out of 5 cards from the exiled library. There are a lot of amazing options, but reducing our life total by, at best case scenario, 20, most average case scenario, probably like 10 to 15, because we'll probably take some hits because people realize our life total is a resource, which is why if we're going to cast Doomsday, you need to have a way to draw that first card and play that first card. Don't just Doomsday and think you're going to survive another turn. You Doomsday and you're probably going to die because everyone sees what's going on. Some typical Doomsday targets for me, or cards that I like to think of when I'm about to Doomsday, are Commune with Lava, which is a big ol' X spell that exiles the top X cards of your library and allows you to cast them until your next turn, until the end of your next turn. That's like a big ol' X payoff right there. Comet Storm can be split however many times you have extra mana outside of the 2 red. You have Exsanguinate, which is the best spell. Like, I think that is a must include in every Rowan Scion of War deck, is Exsanguinate, because it would be stupid of you not to. It's too good. Double black, you get to regain triple whatever you lost this turn if you use it correctly. If it's allowed to resolve, insane. And then Torment of Hailfire, of course. I also like using Dance with Calamity and Apex of Power to slide on in there and, you know, dig the rest of my cards out. Because Dance with Calamity allows you to just auto cast everything, and then Apex of Power gives you 10 extra mana to do with whatever you want. Number 3 is actually a really nice segue out of my last topic, which is Apex of Power. Apex of Power is one of my favorite cards in this deck, and it's really just a flex because we can cast it for 3 mana. Yeah, we're gonna cast a 10 mana spell for 3 mana, and then all the spells that get exiled under it, those top 7, are all going to cost whatever reduction we've already used less, and it's going to give us 10 mana. It is one of the best dig spells I can think of in terms of reduction is easy to actually manage, and honestly, even reducing it down to like 5 is insane. Or like, yeah, literally just anything that isn't that big 7 is a beautiful thing. Next up is every card that gains us life. I was singing the praises of Exsanguinate earlier. I mean that. You should run Exquisite Blood. You should run Tendrils of Agony. You should run ways to mitigate your life loss, because you will die. This deck wants you to be greedy. When I was talking about the Hidetsugu combo, I should have mentioned giving him lifelink more lifelink. More lifelink. Always be trying to bolster your life total as often as you can, and tutoring and drawing, and yeah, gain life. It's the one thing that you need to do. It should be your first prerogative, is to cast Exsanguinate or Exquisite Blood, because you will want to keep digging. And then lastly, the last card I want to highlight, purely out of just the beauty of this card, is Peer into the Abyss. There are a couple cards in this deck that highlighting you can cast before or after Rowan. This is one of those cards. If you cast it before you activate Rowan, it's very big, but it's not insane. There are rituals in here that can bring that down. Like a Dark Ritual makes it only 4 mana. technically 5 because of the Dark Ritual. But you see my point. You can play it before Rowan to lose half of your life and draw half of your library. It's a really good way to then find your spells that untap Rowan, such as Seize the Day, and untap her multiple times to get to probably like 30 to 30 plus on your reduction scale, and drop one of the big X spells you most likely drew from half of your library. A lot of this deck just wants to cheat its way to the biggest spell, which is very flavorful for how Rowan actually like acted in the story. A little vengeful, little mad, going for the power plays only. So we will burn ourselves into the midnight to seize victory. And I hope you liked the deck. That is Rowan, Scion of Rakdos, Doomsday Spell Storm. And I hope you join us in the Discord. I hope you join us on Instagram, Twitter, I'm sorry, X. It's called X now. And if you would join the Patreon for $1 a month, we would really appreciate it. Thank you, and we hope to be back with some more content later. Love you guys, and remember, untap, upkeep, drink.